No matter how many distractions are happening in the world right now to avoid the subject of Jeffrey Edward Epstein, we're going to bypass everything that's ever been said before. He is clearly the most renowned name at the center of the subject of the most infamous, worldwide child trafficking syndicate in modern history. We will transcend every opinion that has ever been stated about documents that have been released to this date and dive directly and deeply into the plethora of factual information. This is being done in honor of and with respect for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein himself, as well as the victims of his colleagues, associates, and cohorts. These are the most sickening crimes that could ever be committed, crimes against children. We are speaking about this with no fear, no hesitancy, and absolutely no filter. These are details that need to be discussed, details that are very, very pertinent as to what truly occurred for many decades. They are still attempting to keep the subject of Jeffrey Epstein and company off the radar and out of the minds of people worldwide.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
What really happened with Jeffrey Edward Epstein and his colleagues? What is their true current status? Who is involved from day one? Who is still involved? Despite feigned expressions of transparency and little droplets of supposed disclosures, why are so many politicians working with unstoppable diligence to keep the complete truth from coming into the public's knowledge? They prohibit all the victims of Epstein and his perverted friends the justice that they so very much deserve. But that stops now. In this particular 70-page document, what we're looking for is part of the arrest warrant from 2019. As you go through the document yourself, word by word, page by page, name by name, you will see many things that need to be clarified. You will see many things no longer hidden from the public in any manner whatsoever. It is time for total and complete transparency, for the victims to have justice, for fear to be put to the side, and for all of the guilty parties to be held accountable. This cabal that ran the Epstein syndicate for decades, whether people believe Jeffrey Epstein is now alive or dead, is a cabal that is now scrambling to hide the full and complete truth of what happened and what is unquestionably still happening. One of the many fascinating things to point out in this particular document are the varying theories as to whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was murdered or whether he committed suicide. He may have even moved to Israel or to another country and is perhaps still alive. On July 2, 2019, an arrest warrant was issued for Jeffrey Edward Epstein. The arrest warrant says he is 6 foot, 1 inch tall, and that he weighs 185 pounds. This warrant's facts shifted, constantly shifting from one written fact to another, even on documents dated on the very same day. It then says he has gray hair and blue eyes, has the birthplace of Brooklyn, New York, and is of his American citizenship. Then, another part of the same indictment document says that he is 6 feet tall and has brown hair. These might seem like unimportant nuances that could be discarded as typos or lacks of consistency in the transfer of communication. However, these errors written as fact contained within a criminal indictment and arrest documents show that the entire scandal surrounding Jeff Epstein runs much deeper than imagined. All of the rumors, arguments, and controversies that continue to this very day are inconsistent. Does he have brown eyes or does he have blue eyes? Is he being arrested for conspiracy to defraud the government or for child trafficking? Without the slightest doubt, many more high-level cabal members than most people could possibly imagine who are continuing to work together to keep the complete truth of Epstein's story the biggest secret in modern history. In this kind of arrest warrant and other attached documents that you can see for yourself, there is extensive and often contradictory information flooding in like water through a broken dam. There are studies done, and there are numerous people involved, including judges, police officers, U.S. Marshals, FBI agents, among others. What we are looking at today are certain ironies and certain contradictions in the beginning parts of the documentation, because to understand the end of a story, any story, you have to understand the beginning of the story, no matter how gruesome or hard to believe such a story could be. We're going to go extremely deep into this, day by day and week by week, to a depth that has never been done before. It's very important to look at the beginning documentation before you get lost in the psyop, the pre-scripted words of some foreign-paid social media influencer. If you look at the first page of this arrest warrant under the caution and medical sections, Section 2 specifically, it details psychiatric emotionally disturbed issues, e.g. mental health concern, suicidal. Remember this. Allegedly written on July 6th of 2019, it is clearly marked that there are absolutely no concerns that Jeffrey Epstein had, at that point, any mental health problems or that he had any suicidal ideations. It goes into further detail, explaining that his occupation is self-employed, which contradicts written details that you can see for yourself in this same documentation, when it says his occupation is banker. 2 days later, on July 8th, 2019, you can clearly see that an individual named Jeffrey E. Epstein was in fact arrested and fingerprinted on paper. He was fingerprinted in a manner that does not correspond with typical digital fingerprint taking, as it was done just 6 years ago. Why were Jeffrey Epstein's fingerprints taken on a piece of paper in such an outdated, archaic way if it was truly the intention to indict, arrest, try and sentence this horrific pedophile kingpin? The date of the arrest was the 6th of July, but his apparent date of arrest, booking and fingerprinting was not until the 8th of July. However, as you go through this entire document, you find these apparent facts, which are sometimes handwritten and sometimes typed, that change and contradict one another. Did he commit suicide? Is he really dead? When was he actually arrested? For what was he truly charged on either the 6th or 8th of July, 2019? When you look at page 7, that's a full-color picture of Epstein. That's the actual Jeffrey Edward Epstein booking sheet. That's an actual detention report. The man in that picture clearly has gray hair, not brown hair. Did he have brown hair previous to his arrest during that specific week? This was a period of literally 48 hours in 2019. Most shockingly, when you look at the special cautions and medical indications, it now lists the arrested and indicting parties having serious concerns for Epstein's mental state. This was during that same 48-hour period in 2019. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein suddenly had suicidal tendencies. It is neither logical nor realistic to believe that the arresting bodies knew he was going to kill himself just a short time after this document was written. The dates on this documentation do not correspond with the facts of the case, nor his arrest, nor his health, nor the circumstances of his alleged suicide. You can see very clearly on page 9 that he has a driver's license for the U.S. Virgin Islands. He also has an identification card for his address on El Brio Way in Palm Beach, Florida, which is also an extremely interesting oddity. He was supposedly 61 years old and a Medicare recipient. We won't go through every detail, but if you look at the page with his insurance provider under Medicare, it says United Healthcare. We all very clearly recall that there was an assassination of a CEO of a major insurance company that was supposedly assassinated by a man named Luigi Mangione. The victim of that assassination was the CEO of United Healthcare. You can keep going and going. Why is there all of this detailed, yet contradictory information in such a relative small, yet extremely important criminal document? It concludes with his alleged suicide, and a case that was totally closed just 2 days after he allegedly died. Why are there so many people named in such a relative small document? This is a verbal analysis of the contradiction of facts of this entire case. There are multiple name changes, like Jeffrey Edward Epstein being written as being Jeff Epstein. Sometimes they use his middle name, while other times they use a middle initial. Other times they use his full middle name, Edward. They don't use this middle name while they have him charged with one crime and then arrested for another. They state him having a perfect mental state one day with no suicidal ideations, and then the same day they state him having suicidal ideations. So what's the setup? Why does this document appear more like a movie script being written instead of an actual legal, judicial, sequential arrest document? In the entire process of the arrest, fingerprinting, and detainment this man, there was no strip search done on him. This doesn't make any sense considering the gravity of the charges and the indictment that was put against him. His wealth and his connections should be irrelevant. There was no strip search done on a man who is charged with a very serious set of sex abuse-related charges. These charges lasted for decades and all contained within an indictment. This included numerous victims. These victims were named at one point and then not named, anonymous at one point, and then clearly implied as to who they were just a few pages later. It is extremely important to look at the dates of the indictment and the arrest warrant. It was put out on July 6th, but he was not actually arrested. It says on one document that his arrest was not until the 8th, nor was he fingerprinted until the 8th. Yet on another document, it says he was arrested supposedly on the 6th. The 6th was the same day as the indictment. It also keeps mentioning United Healthcare when there are indications related to his health insurance status and provider. Then we get down to the United States Marshal's booking package photos. There we have Jeffrey Epstein, now saying he's 6 feet tall and 185 pounds. It says that he has brown hair now. He hadn't had brown hair for decades. There are continuous and constant contradictions, misspellings and misinformation put into this documentation. We can plainly see whomever is writing these series of pages are flip-flopping on the facts. Closely look at the dates. One cannot help but notice the contradictions of facts. This next part deals with the property owned by Jeffrey Epstein and what the court ordered before, during and after the arrest warrant. This includes the indictment and the actual arrest, detainment and alleged suicide of Jeffrey Epstein. Looking at page 36, it is very interesting that on July 8, 2019, it says, "Notice is hereby given that an action has been commenced in this court upon the indictment of the above-named defendant and against the named property for forfeiture thereto, which premises are generally known as New York County, New York 9, East 71st Street, New York, 10021. This was Jeffrey Epstein's primary residence in New York City. Forfeiture, something that is lost or surrendered as a penalty. This was just 2 days after the indictment and the supposed arrest on the 8th or on the 6th of July 2019. After the fingerprints on the 6th or on the 8th because the alleged written and then sometimes typed facts in front of your own eyes keeps flip-flopping. Why so much effort to change and contradict facts that are literally undeniable? Those facts being actual calendar dates? Remember, this is being repeated so everybody understands the importance of the 70 pages. It's not just words and photos. It's dates and it's numbers and it's contradictions all over the place. As we continue to look at page 59, we see one of the most interesting points that people need to really understand. We're talking about only 5.5 lines, and we are reading them for you for clarity's sake. On August 10th, 2019, Epstein allegedly committed suicide while in custody in New York. Then, on August 12, 2019, that's less than 2 days, later a senior inspector, whose name is blacked out, spoke with the U.S. Virgin Islands office in regards to this entire case. Based on the above information, all parties agreed that this case would be dropped and the search warrant for Epstein's phone would be canceled. The MLAT request for all countries were canceled and all investigative activities were canceled. This case is now closed. That's one of the biggest ironic things in this entire situation, because if you remember previously and you go back and you read this entire document, everything was seized in the beginning. Then he supposedly committed suicide on the 10th. Every case in every country involved with Jeff Epstein was canceled. This involved a warrant for his telephone, which was supposedly seized when other property had been seized not long before. With that, the case was closed. Period. No, not period. No, that is not the end of the Epstein story, nor the end of the truth. And yes, clearly in the contents of the 70 pages, there are certain things that are redacted. The names of investigators, names of police officers, and some of the names of the victims who gave statements during this current time are redacted. So many contradictions happened in a very short period of time. But the irony, the contradictions, the multiple judges and magistrates that signed off on documents that actually contradicted one another brings something into question. What's brought into question is on page 62 of the 70 pages. On that page, it says very clearly that he was on the U.S. Virgin Islands Sex Offender Registry. This appears to make reference to his crimes back in the day, in the early 2000s. At the same time, it talks about a plane which had a tail number. They were unable to determine where this registered plane was. It then talks about Vienna, Monaco, U.S. Virgin Islands, etc. International, political, and diplomatic contacts aside, the facts and law dictate that you cannot have your flight logs just simply erased. You might be able to control who's listed on a flight manifest, but you cannot have the tracking of your plane actually erased on an international level. Every single plane, private and public, is tracked. The only ones that don't have a trace of where they were, and when they were, are ones that are associated with people that are connected on the highest of international, political, diplomatic, financial, and political levels. It is clear that this 70-page document, among tens of thousands of documents, is extremely pertinent to the truth of who exactly Jeffrey Epstein is and who was backing Jeffrey Epstein. It clearly proves that Jeffrey Epstein was not trafficking hundreds of children just for himself and his own sick pleasures. There are far too many contradictions from the very first moment of this scandal. There are far too many laws violated. There are far too many U.S. judicial districts and foreign countries involved. The SDNY clearly had a deep involvement in creating a series of labyrinth-like documents to intentionally create confusion. The Epstein scandal, the actual writing of it, is nothing less than a script. It's the writing of a story, seemingly made up along the way. The victims are demanding justice. The victims who are not hiding behind anonymous names, the women who were little girls and the men who were little boys, are not getting the justice they deserve. It is not logical that Jeffrey Edward Epstein went from a perfect mental state to a suicidal one within a 48-hour period. All of these facts bring into question many other questions. Who is Jeffrey Epstein? Who did he work with? Who does he potentially still work with? And who is running the empire he started many decades ago? Who is he working for, and who worked for and with him? This is what we're getting to the bottom of, and we will not stop until all the information is fully transparent in front of the public's eye. No more grayness, no more vagueness, and no more mind games. No more partial releases for temporary pleasure, and no more false promises. Justice for the victims and punishment for the perpetrators.